weeks ago, I met with David and we chatted about the rundown for the service, and he explained how a guest would join us. A speaker named David Maginley. He explained that he has the same name, pretty cool, and he's really tall. And I also got in the email, you're not going to have to change the name in your little script there, because his name's David too. I was like, great. Anyways, after David got into David's story, other David, I was truly amazed at everything I was learning. I'm not going to give any spoiler alerts, but I can assure you that Reverend Maginley actually has an amazing story to share. And yeah, you'll get it. You'll get it soon enough. Pretty cool. So I'd like to invite Reverend Maginley forward.
Yeah, so for most people, there we are, I scare them because I walk in, you're a hospital patient, and a chaplain walks in. You didn't ask for a chaplain, he just walks in, and he towers above the bed. What are you going to think? It must be really bad, right? I am a friendly giant. They do find out I'm the friend. I'll call Rusty, and They worry. They worry because it brings home the reality of that weighted word, cancer. I work in cancer and palliative care and intensive care. I swim in suffering 8 hours a day. It is the most profound privilege to accompany people through the wilderness of worry, to help them connect to the deep strength that they're wired with, and to help them wrestle with the unfinished love stories of their lives. Their families are shaken to the bone by a diagnosis, but protect their loved one from those private thoughts, those rehearsals of the worst outcome. And the patient rallies to protect the family from those very thoughts, even though the word cancer also usually brings that possibility of death. And so a chaplain comes into the room and it tends to make matters worse. I have an uphill battle, and so I sit down, get on their level, lean in, and just say the heart's intent. How you doing? This is hard. I'm here to help. I'm not here to poke you with a needle. I'm here to connect and support your faith, but also to help you just wrestle if you have no faith, to help you tell your story, to help you not hide any part of yourself. In this moment, it's safe to be raw and authentic and wrestle with mortality. Negotiate with the ultimate. I know that journey. I've had cancer 4 times, a nasty little beast called non-chromaffin parenganglioma pheochromocytoma. You want to say that with me now? So unlike most cancers that spread and take over the body, mine sits like a little time bomb, and it makes a Molotov cocktail of chemicals. And when your adrenal gland turns on and releases any amount of adrenaline, it's a switch and it causes the tumors to blow. Blood pressure skyrockets and people collapse. Usually it kills you instantly. So, since 17, I've had these, and I was told by the doctor not to get excited, not to get worried, don't get anxious, don't get too happy and joyful, don't exercise, don't get scared, don't feel, no life. B flat. So, thank God I'm here, because I'm not good at turning off. How can you use the crisis to fuel spiritual growth? How can you take advantage of this time of ultimate vulnerability to go deep and grow in faith to evolve your consciousness? It starts with the proverbial question. You know the question. Why me? Why me? And I've had more than a few people say those insulting words that are an affront to your fragility, that violate your experience, that give some platitude like a bandage to your existential distress. And those words are ones that you may have said, and I know that because I've said them too, and they are just the worst words, even more so because they hold some truth. God has a purpose in this. Then give me a different God. Check me out of that plan, or give me no God at all. Those words do not come into your vulnerability and honor it with the depth of compassion that simple silence can bring. A silent, deeply present person is a beautiful person. And those words are often offered as a bandage, and yet they hold some truth. Because if there is a God, a omnipotent, personal, aware, foundational consciousness of the universe, then God is present in all things. And with that power, why do you not rescue us from the suffering? Because that would be an insult to our humanity. Don't do someone's homework for them. What is the purpose in suffering? The age-old question. Well, it's not ordained to us. It happens, usually because of our own fault. Take cancer. The majority of cancers occur from age 50 and up, and even more of those from age 70 and up. And they are caused by such a myriad web of factors that we can't nail anything down conclusively. But a great many of them are accelerated by lifestyle choices, exposure to the environment. A great many of them are not directly linked to heredity and genetics. There are mutations that occur within the body, but we're never going to be able to pin down exactly what the cause is. And that leaves one feeling helpless, so they revert to those inner questions. What did I do to contribute to my disease? Was it because I didn't love my mother? Is it part of the emotional homework that cascades and ripples out into my body to manifest in a tumor? We can't pin it down. And in that helplessness, we often attribute it to God and say those words, God must have a purpose in this. Because that is better than the alternative. If there is no purpose, then God is uncaring. Or maybe it just is. Part of the price we pay for civilization. If you hear anyone ask that question, why me? Do not insult their experience with a band-aid or an answer, but sit with them and lean in and reach out your hand and offer the depth of your presence, but no words, because they're wrestling with mortality. They're negotiating with the ultimate. And it is in the asking that we grow. Ultimately, it is in hindsight that we find the answers. I look back on my life, now I'm 54 years old. My first one was when I was 17, then 27, then 35, then 38. Longest remission I've ever had. I think I'm in the clear. But they say, God must have a purpose in this. Is there something I'm supposed to learn? Then I must be the most thick-headed student in the planet. But I look back at the journey and I see what happened. My goodness, I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for my journey through cancer. It has shaped me in ways I never could have anticipated. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful. And my question has now shifted from why me to what am I going to do with it? Don't waste the crisis. It has so much power for transformation. It has so much energy to refine our souls, to repair our relationships, to build the bridges to the broken parts of our lives, and enable reconciliation, authenticity. That's the nature of crisis, whatever form it may take. If there is a purpose in the pain of the evolutionary journey, it can be boiled down to our response to it. Compassion. It is in the darkness that we shine the brightest. It is in the brokenness that we become more authentic, and the ego is put to the side, and the foolish ways that eat up our energy and our time and resources are realigned. How can we not waste the crisis? St. Paul, in that reading, had been through so much pain, torture, imprisonment, rough seas, shipwrecked, rejection by the other disciples because they didn't think he was an authentic one. No wonder he used to persecute them. And he sits there in our text and he says, if you keep reading that, he says, I count all of the trials I've been through as blessings, especially compared to the glory to come. And he referred to that glory in a cryptic way. Did you notice he talked about it in the third person? I know a guy who went up to the third level of heaven. Now, in the body, out of the body, I don't know, but he saw wonders that are beyond description. I think he's talking about himself. Specifically because he's written that letter to a group, a church, that's filled with people who have let their egos consume them, who are high on their horse and proud and mighty in their power. And he's aware, if I put this all out there and say, it was me, then, they're going to think I'm crazy. Really? You've been to heaven and back? Interesting thing is, it's more common than you think. Been there? Done that. I was 27. I was on internship. I was doing a church service in a hospital chapel when the tumor kicked in. Now, public speaking is rated amongst one of the most anxiety-provoking things you could possibly do. Coffee beforehand doesn't help, though. It's a luxury in church. I really like this. And I got up to do my service with the tumor inside me, and I feel its effects. I got about 10 seconds warning, and you start to break out in the sweat, and everything starts to go blurry, and you breathe deep, and you ground your feet, and you say, not this time, not this time. I can do it. But the body shuts off. The tumor blows. Circuit breaker's gone. I was out before I hit the floor. Now, it's a long way down. And in a hospital floor, it's hard. The concussion is stunning. But I didn't feel it because I was gone. And suddenly found myself somewhere else. I was on a grassy hill. There were no pearly gates, but there was a tree at the top of the hill, and it was just a grassy hill. and yet indescribable wonder. Astonishing love, expansive awareness. My entire consciousness was amplified and connected to everything around me. I felt every blade as it moved, and the colors were beautiful and rich like I've never seen before, and the light came from everywhere. And I was home. That's the word that everybody uses who has a near-death experience. They were home. Why do they use that word? Because you're not suppressing any part of yourself. You are completely whole and authentic. You can relax in your own skin. Well, such as it is, I was dead. I had no skin. The nurse and the doctor, they were doing CPR. They were trying to restart my heart. They had moved everyone out of the chapel, which was good. Don't scare the patients by collapsing. And they were trying to revive me. My heart had stopped. I wasn't aware of all that. I was transported into wonder, and I wasn't alone. I felt this presence beside me. Now, it was a distinctly masculine figure, warm, compassionate, powerful, wise beyond all belief, but felt like my best friend. And it was as if I was dropped into the middle of a casual conversation. He said, "Hello, David, good to see you." And I said, "I'm home. I'm home. I'm so happy." And he said, "Yeah, it's great that you're here. Things are going well." My body is prone in the hospital. My wife is totally freaking out. The doctor's not having any luck. But I agreed. Things were going very well, because I was home and happy and jubilant, and I wanted to run to the top of the hill and get to that tree. And I said, "Come on, let's go. Let's go. Let's get to the top," because if I got there, I knew I would see what's on the other edge of that hill, and I would never come back here. And he said, "You can't go. You can't go up there. But look, things are going well. You have a lot of work to do. You can't stay. You're going to have to go back." And I ignored that. I just ignored it, and I said, "No, let's go to the hill." And my feet wouldn't move. And this power and compassion and love and gentleness and tenderness emanated from his entire being, and he just said, "You can't go up there. But look, you have a lot of work to do. We will be with you." Notice the plural. "We will be with you and give you strength." And my heart sank with those words, as if that's possible. Was I in heaven or just on its doorstep? It was enough for me, and I didn't want to leave, but he laughed, and I felt his touch on my shoulder, and he just said, "We'll see you later." Now, people have asked me, was that Jesus? And I have never in my life assumed it was Jesus. I've never assumed they would send the boss to see a little guy like me. It was some junior angel in training, or, right? It was a friend of a friend of a friend. I never looked at him. But the vision of what I saw is imprinted in my soul and has never faded. And this is what the research indicates. People who have a near-death experience never forget it. Even 50, 60, 70, 80 years later, it resonates with the same emotional energy and intensity and vitality. And it puts everything in perspective. They come back with the astonishing statements such as, "God has a purpose in this, in everything. Nothing can happen that can separate you from the love of God, and every crisis can be used for the advancement of love. All we have to do is step up to the plate when it feels like there's nothing to do. Step forward in compassion." Why? Because God is love. It's not something God does, it's what God is. And as we embody love and compassion, however feeble and clumsy our ways may be, however Our words may stumble from our mouth, or we don't know what to say. As long as we show up and are deeply present and love in our own way, we are manifesting the divine and growing our soul. God doesn't care who you love. God cares that you love, because God is love. That doesn't mean I've been able to do it well. Nobody comes back from touching on the doorstep of heaven enlightened. You don't have your act all together, and you do not love perfectly. If anything, you're more messed up than you ever were before, because you're homesick, and you can end up doing foolish, stupid things to try and fill that hole in your heart and recover that intensity of love. And even if you get a download of cosmic blueprints, they are too vast for your cognitive processing, so they get buried in your subconscious and they leak out over the decades. It's frustrating. But it does enable you to look at all of your foolishness and all of your suffering and all of the pain around you and say the divine is still possible here, even more so because of our brokenness. Strength perfected in weakness, as Paul says. Now, I'm not as tactful as St. Paul. I'm just telling you outright. It happened to me. And it happens so often, I bet there's at least, I would say 10 people here who've had a mystical experience and touched the other side or been touched by it. It wasn't that which motivated me to write a book. It was simply the struggle of dealing with cancer and the tidal wave of patients that kept coming. I had to find a way to more effectively support them. So maybe it was the emotional cholesterol that had built in me over 15 years of working with them, but it spilt out. And 5 years later, I've got a book. Now, that's a miracle. The idea of writing 100,000 words is just too overwhelming. And yet I was woken at 4 o'clock for 2 years at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I moved to the computer and I just wrote it. It's weird to read it because it seems like somebody else's book. It's called Beyond Surviving, Cancer and Your Spiritual Journey, and it's about my journey with cancer and patient stories and how to cope with hope and love and grief and forgiveness and repair the heart and don't waste the crisis. And then we get into the other side. If you don't make it, what happens to you? Well, transformation, not oblivion. Your departure from this world, that's in our hands to make sure it's as smooth as possible, but your arrival is guaranteed. Wonder awaits us. In the meantime, we have work to do. And we're not alone. They'll be with us. Think about your own life and all the struggles you've been through, and those who are struggling around you. Commit your heart to manifest love, to embody compassion, to be what the Buddhists call a bodhicitta, a warrior of compassion. In doing so, you will manifest the very light of heaven that will receive you on your final day. I'm happy to be staying after worship. I'm going to have a Q&A. I'll go to the parlor and we can talk about anything you want to talk about. I brought some books. 15% of the proceeds from the book go directly to support cancer patients through the QEII Foundation. This is not for research. This is for the rubber hits the road kind of stuff, helping them with parking, with financial stress and strain, with accommodations, with the basics. Because even within our great healthcare system, cancer can cripple you financially. And it's a practical way to love. So happy to do that. In the meantime, I'm on sabbatical. I've taken a year off to talk about the book, to travel, and to take care of my own emotional cholesterol and celebrate this beautiful life that we so briefly travel here, and confident that we manifest God even in our clumsy, awkward ways. May you shine. May God bless you and keep you. May God's face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May God look upon you with favor and give you peace. Amen.
God is love. Thank you, David.
When painful memories haunt each day and dreams disturb the night, when life is washed with shades of gray and phantoms fill our sight, Christ stay beside us and embrace the child who dwells within. Come heal, Lord, touch our lives with grace, restore our lives again.
Let us pray. Dear God, I pray that you will surround everyone in your love, continuing to heal those who are facing sickness, help to heal their bodies, and soothe their minds. Please aid their loved ones, showing them comfort in what is such a difficult time. Amen.
Our closing song, Jesus Draw Me Ever Near. Let's rise as we are able and go out singing. with your likeness, let me wake.
And in the words of Dr. Evan Alexander, those who have had a near-death experience will tell you, the realm is far more real than this world, more crisp, vibrant, and of course alive.